You
What
know
are you
what I
gonna
mean?
take grandma's pension?
Oh, you gotta do what you gotta do. You know what
Oh
I
my
mean?
god! Don't be like Uncle Compton and have a drawer in his house full of receipts.
You can be in good vibes with somebody today, and they could say something really, really crazy tomorrow, and
Yeah,
that just throws that whole good vibe into a whole different water. So.
exactly. Yeah. Hi guys, it's Dems.
And it's Compton, and welcome to the Be Cool Studios podcast.
Right, on today's episode, we're going to tell you guys the 10 things you must do before you open a photography studio. How do you think about that?
Let's get it.
All right, cool. So number 10, ask yourself why. And what I mean by that is, what experience do you have? So for you, why did you want to jump back into owning a studio again?
As you mentioned in the question just then, I did technically own the studio before, which I owned just over a year. I
Yeah.
think it was just before the infamous lockdown. Let's not talk about it. COVID hit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that experience I gained from opening that first studio is what gave me the sort of knowledge and know-how as to what I need to do going into another venture like that. So it was important to take the little bit of information that I gathered in that 12 months to then look at how we can, when we decided to own studio, how we can implement some of those things and what we should do differently or what we could do differently.
Yeah.
Because at the time I took on a studio on my own, which in hindsight now wasn't the right decision. It's not a terrible decision, but wasn't the right decision at the time. So now with the clearer mind, a better understanding of the whole situation and what it takes to actually run and successfully run a photography studio, we decided to do it. So
Yeah. What would you say some of the things were like, if you could say like one main thing that you learned from having it by yourself, which helped you when we came together? If you could say like one thing, what would you say?
is and it's something that we're going to talk about later on in the video, is having somebody that deals with some of the stuff that you personally either can't do or don't have enough time to deal with.
Yeah.
And having that balance, whereas in one person does one thing that's role specific, and then the other person does something, so it balances out perfectly, so we can both stay on our own trajectory, if that's a word, if that's the way you say it, in terms of what our goals are and what we need to achieve individually, but collectively as a team we set goals as well. So
So for myself, I was like a relatively new photographer. I didn't know anything about running a studio. And there's a book I've been reading lately, The Richest Man in Babylon. And there's a quote in there, which I honestly can't remember it off the top of my head. So I'm going to link it down below. You guys should see it pop up on the screen any second. But it's something along the lines of saying that, if you are going to get into a venture, get into it with someone who has the expertise and the know-how. So the fact that we formed a friendship and then we started thinking about how we can develop something together, that was for me why I wanted to jump into owning a studio. In terms of the next one, so I think the next one is know your competition. So in terms of knowing your competition, if you're going to jump into any business, it's always important to know who your main competitors are in terms of what services they offer to clients. How can you offer different services, or how can you even better what they may do? That's another thing which is important if you are going to jump into owning a studio space, because you do need to know who your competitors are.
yeah, and I think the way we operate it is that we know our competitors, but we're not necessarily quote unquote competing with them. we're not here to technically compete with them. They are our competitors, and we're in a very sort of creative sort of area where we are.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna play that competition game, you're always gonna be trying to one up, trying to be one better. No, you just got to focus on what you were good at, and we know our strengths.
Yeah.
So I think for us, yes, knowing the competition is very important, but we also knew our own individual strengths, which we brought to the table that we know that will benefit us as a studio.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say number 8 would be you definitely need to write a business plan. And what I mean by writing that business plan, it's inclusive of how much the startup costs are going to be in terms of how much you need to buy the equipment, budget for a space, even though you've not started looking for a space yet. So in terms of how much you need for a space, how much you need for equipment, looking at the overheads as well. So maybe until you get the space, you won't realistically know what overheads would be, but, you know, start budgeting for things like utilities. So, you know, you need a business phone, for example.
Insurance.
Contents insurance. That was a funny one, because remember when we didn't realize we needed that.
Yeah, you need that, because that covers you for liability and stuff, etc. So there is a few things there that you definitely it's important when it comes to writing a business plan.
Yeah.
This is something I didn't do when I first had a studio, so that's another lesson that I learned when I first had a studio, is that I just went in blind. I just said, look, I've kind of had the savings at the time to do it. So that obviously helps. So that's another key thing to add in there as well when it comes to your business plan, having that sort of residual income or sort of savings pot that you can fall back on just in case if you have a rainy day. And let's not kid ourselves, it's not just in case. And given the fact that we were within a COVID sort of environment when we opened our studio, COVID was still prevalent around. So there were months where you couldn't do anything, you couldn't work. So don't just have savings for a rainy day. Like, yes, you need savings for a rainy day.
Yeah. And then within that business plan as well, I suppose from looking at the competitors and kind of having an idea what their prices are, what services they offer, you need to realistically look at, what would year one be, kind of base the trajectory on year one based on, if you're looking at from a revenue standpoint in terms of how much money you'll bring in, because look, when we first got the studio, the whole idea was we wanted a space to create for ourselves, but then we realized that it will be good to outsource the services, i.e. get people to come in and use it when we're not here,
because we're not going to be using it 24/7. So on those occasional days when it's not in use by either one of us, then we just basically rent it out to other like-minded creatives within the Manchester area.
Exactly. And then within that business plan as well, looking at how you project the first year to be, and also look at marketing strategies as well, in terms of how you'd market the business, which we'd get to a bit later. The next point I'd say, which I think we're on point 7, I'm not keeping count, I'm better with words than numbers, but I think we are on point 7. Capital, which you just touched on. You need to have an idea where you're going to get this money from, unless you got a rich uncle or something that's good.
Or grandma's got you a nice hefty pot of savings left over. What
are you going to take grandma's pension?
Oh, you got to do what you got to do.
Oh my God.
Nah, no, don't do that. Don't do that to grandma. Don't do that to grandma. But yeah, so having that savings is important. Personally, for me, I think if I didn't had a pot of savings for at least I think it was like 6 months I budgeted for in advance, I probably wouldn't have done it. Whereas in this time around when we did it, I think I only said, look, I personally need about 3 months, because that cuts it in half, because the responsibilities is 50-50 in that aspect. So that's why I give myself 3 months rather than 6 this time. Whereas in before, I probably would have said 12. At least 12 months. But we all know when it comes to businesses as well, and that's something we've learned now that we've been open for a year, is that 12 months goes by that quick.
That went so fast.
Right? And before you know it, you either really down or you break even.
Yeah.
So you need to understand that, and don't be surprised when that happens as well. So
Yeah. No, I think that's true as well. So in terms, because for myself, like I said, which touches on the quote which popped up on screen earlier, I didn't know anything about the logistics of owning a studio. So I think the fact that you had the know-how in terms of, you know, what equipment to buy, whatever. Because remember when we sat down,
yeah, I
we
think I
initially,
already had some contacts as well,
Yeah.
isn't it?
and I literally said to you, all right, look, Compton, I don't know what equipment we need. So if you just make a list, we kind of realized early on, which again, we'll get to later, we kind of realized early on what worked well. So that's why it helped us get on the same kind of vibe in terms of who can do what, whatever. The next point, which I believe is point 6. Good. Yeah. Identify and secure a location for your photography studio.
Finding the right location is it's top of the list in terms of importance.
Yeah.
Finding the right location, i.e., location when it comes to travel for your clients, travel for yourself, because that's important. Getting to and from the studio.
Yeah.
Whether it's also in a area where it's up and coming, it's already vibrant, or you know, an area where it's sort of in between. You know, it needs a little bit of regenerating or whatever. So the area you pick is quite important. So do your research, do your Googling, and also if you can, go check out these places as well. Check out the surrounding areas.
Yeah, because in terms of the location for us, so we touched on it in the last episode. We found a beautiful spot in Oldham, but Oldham's just a little bit too far.
Yeah.
Whereas where we are now is central to everything. Talking about identifying who the competitors are, etc. You know, the building that we're in alone, it's a very competitive building for what we do. There's a few other studios here, but that shouldn't dissuade anybody, whether it's a photography studio or any other types of business. Like, I look at competition in a good way, because if anything, you can see what the others are doing, and if you offer a same service, competition will make the market better for the clients, because everybody's vying to improve the services and become better at what they do. So,
and also a way I look at it, when I talk earlier about having competition is sort of healthy, is I look at it this way, right? The same way you look at camera brands, there is how many camera brands out? Many camera brands, right?
I mean, me and you alone shoot different brands, and we stand by those brands.
But when we stand by those, but at the same time, I wouldn't stop, kind of almost saying, oh, you shouldn't go to this studio, because what I find is there'll be multiple clients who might potentially want a certain time of day.
Yeah.
And that particular studio can only hold one set of client. So if you've got a healthy relationship with your competition, what your competition can do and what we tend to do is said, all right, we're not available, our studio is not available today, but we can recommend these guys.
Yeah.
And in that way, that creates that healthy relationship when it comes to the competition side of things. But also shows the competition that you're not here to compete with them.
Yeah.
In a way, we're here to help each other out.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I feel like we grow quicker and better, because people then understand that, look, these guys are not here to compete with us. They're here to help us out because they're sending us business.
100%. Which brings me to point 5, I believe. Obtain an accountant. And I can't stress it again. Obtain an accountant. There's another quote from this book, Richest Man in Babylon, which I'm going to put down below right now because I can't remember it for the life of me. But what it basically says to you is to basically become successful and to, look after the money that you have and invest wisely. Always seek the help of men who are skilled in the handling of money. So you need an accountant to help you out with the things like setting up the business, registering the company, setting up the shares, doing all the filing the year ends, all the HMRC and company house stuff.
That is something that's something
Yeah.
I learned from the first venture that I did. It's something I didn't had in the first venture that I did. So that was another learning curve for me in terms of thinking, because I did everything myself. So that added stress of paperwork and stuff is not great, especially when you've got a like creative mindset and you just want to be creative. You just want to go out, shoot photos. That's it. Like I bang on about it now. Like I'm that guy that would rather be taking photos than doing paperwork.
Yeah.
I hate it. So if you can find somebody else to do that, my accountant recently said to me that's why we're here. So
exactly,
that takes that pressure off you.
Yeah, because if, like I said, look, we're not accountants. That's what they do. That's what they went to uni and studied. Make sure it's an accountant that's actually licensed as well. But, they are there to ease the burden so you can focus on the business and focus on the good things that will bring in more revenue, but not just the revenue, actually providing a service that people will keep coming back for.
Yeah.
Which I think we're now on point 4. After you've spoken to the accountant, you got your business plans, you found the location, blah, blah, blah. Set up your business bank account and invest in some accounting software. Now, we know you don't like doing your accounting.
But that's what helped me. That's what sort of helped me understand it and eased it a little bit at the beginning. Because I've always had an accounting software. Luckily for me, and I think there's a few other banks that do it, but NatWest actually does it. They provide a free accounting app that comes with their business bank account. And that has basically everything spelled out for you. All you got to do is just put everything in as an expense, is it income, etc., etc., and it's all laid out in the software for you. So that makes it a lot easier. And now we're finding out it works the same way as QuickBooks.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people might be familiar with QuickBooks, or what's the other one called?
Sage.
So
Free Agent.
Exactly. So if it works exactly the same, and also a lot of actual accountants are happy that people are using these softwares, because it makes their life a lot easier when it comes to like paperwork and stuff.
Exactly. Where's that second camera? Swing that to me a second. Let me tell him certain. Wait, is it focused? It's focused now, yeah? Don't be like Uncle Compton and have a drawer in his house full of receipts. Uncle Compton was a very naughty boy. He's the type of client that will give an accountant anxiety. Don't do it. But no, jokes aside though, with the accounting software, like how much easier is it for us? Every time we go and buy something, we just literally scan it, put it in straight away. Any purchases on the website, anything, it's just all there, ready. Keep physical copies as well of everything, because you need your physicals and your digital copies. But we've just literally done our year end, and Jonathan said,
he was happy with
how we did it.
Digital, isn't it, stuff? Yeah. Because it's so easy, it's all there. It's important to keep. I think they said up to 6 years. So you should keep
something along those lines.
Your physical copies of your receipts. So having that present physically, because you know why we talk about all these things, right? Just a little side note. The reason we're trying to bring this up and talk to you guys about this is simply because we don't want people to assume that getting a photography studio is an easy thing. It's not. It's a lot of work, a lot of effort. But if you can do that with somebody else, like we talked about earlier, then it takes that pressure off a little bit from you as the main person or whatever.
Yeah.
It takes some of that pressure off. So, we don't want to make out as if it's too hard. But our advice is make sure you do your research and do all your bits before you actually get into thinking about, actually owning a studio, setting up a studio.
Number 2 is, once you've done all that, now I believe it's time to establish your social media channels. So your websites, your Instagrams, your YouTubes. TikTok is the new thing now. I'm showing my age by saying TikTok is the new thing.
And start marketing
Facebooks
pushing it out.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think we did it where we took photos of the space. We did videos as well.
Yeah.
Self-help videos showing clients in terms of where the studio is,
Yeah.
location, travel, how to get to the studio. We talk about some of the equipment that we have in studio as well and how to use it.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you can do. You're not gonna do everything and you're not gonna get everything right.
Yeah.
But just doing them little by little, and as you go along, you will pick up stuff what you need to improve on and what you need to do differently. Because marketing, I feel it's an ever evolving thing.
Facts.
It's not, it just doesn't stay. This is how you should do it, because if you were doing marketing that way 10 years ago,
Yeah.
marketing now is completely different. It's absolutely different. So yeah, that'd be my my take.
Cool. Point 2, which we've been touching on, alluding to the whole point, but have designated roles between the members of the people setting up the photography studio. So there are 2 of us. If you've set up a studio by yourself, I have nothing but love and respect for you, because it's not an easy thing to do on your own. But if you have set it up where it's at least 2 people or more, how do you think that having designated roles has helped us?
Oh yeah, like I touched on it earlier and talk about it. Like there's so many things that I know you're better at than me.
Yeah.
Like
Vice versa.
And then thingy, whenever you're struggling with something that I can potentially help with, you'll ring me and find out, how do we solve it, etc.
Yeah.
So it was quite key to the relationship that we've got, and obviously improving and building on that relationship to know what each other's role is, but also know that we still can have an input into everything in regards to the business. It's just that we know our strengths, and once you know that, it's not a matter of giving up something. It's just giving it to the person who can do that role effectively.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I said it on the last episode, I say it again. Both ourselves are the co-owners of the studio, but my partner has been very instrumental in helping us as well, like behind the scenes with stuff. So there are sometimes things that I'm doing, but she's helped me streamline the process. Because what I've realized about myself, which is quite frustrating, is I'm very much by the book with certain things. So all right, I'll give you an example. Let's say there was a manual right now on how to open a studio, right? I would read the manual from front to back, maybe 3 times over before I take the first step. She'll have a look at the front cover, have a look at the back, probably flip through, and all right, bang. Oh, sorry guys. And then she'll just jump straight in. Do you know what I mean? That's the difference. So she's able to streamline the process. Don't think we've got much time, but should we tell him what point number 1 is? Point number 1, and this is not for just setting up a photography studio. This is for any business you have, and this is the point that people don't like to touch on. You need to have a written contract between all parties involved. Don't go on good vibes. Don't go on verbal contracts. I have been privy to, and I'm sure you can allude on it, but we won't get into too many details, but between family or friends, how many times have we heard people have been screwed over because they've gone on vibes and verbals?
Good vibes change from season to season. So do people. So
I love that. It's true though, isn't it?
It's the honest truth. Like people, you can be in good vibes with somebody today, and they could say something really, really crazy tomorrow, and that just throws that whole good vibe into a whole different water. So.
Exactly, and having an actual written contract, all it does is it just basically protects everybody involved, because as Compton said, people may change. It might be, for all for example, maybe in a year's time or 2 years time, one of the partners might have a different vision for how they think the studio will go. As long as you've got the written contracts in place, everyone's protected. And on that note, I think that's been a good episode. What do you think?
Chill one.
Exactly.
Let me know. Let us know what you think. Is there anything that you want us to actually touch on in terms of having a studio? Anything more detailed? So please let us know as well.
Okay, exactly. And you know how it goes already. Please like, comment, subscribe. I'm getting used to this YouTube stuff. And what's the motto, Compton?
Be cool.
Be true.
Be you.
All right, manners and respect.
Peace.